Welcome back, friends. I'm here today with my good friend and adopted brother, Rick Gion.
Hi, everyone.
So Rick and I have known each other for a really long time, actually.
A really long time.
Yeah. And we have cooked together a lot of meals over the years. We have cooked.
Yeah, probably 20 years worth. That's a lot
20
of
years,
food.
20 years. And all of our friends that we hang out with, we all love to cook. We're all foodies, but Rick is one of the most accomplished cooks among us. And I thought it would be so fun for you all to hear his perspective on cooking, because I feel like it's like super practical, but also very tasty. And some of the things that he's learned over the years to be a better cook. So today is all about tips for being a better cook. So this is whether you are totally intimidated in the kitchen or you feel like you know your way around a kitchen, there's always more to learn here. So Rick, how did you get into cooking in the first place?
Well, I guess it was early on when I was probably 6 or 8, around that time frame, baking cookies, and we'd always have Saturday night steak night on the charcoal grill on the old Weber. We never used lighter fluid. It was always lighting it with a charcoal chimney or with an electric coil. So that's the first tip if you're into charcoal grilling or smoking meat, is to not use lighter fluid, because we want to be as healthy as possible and use those natural ingredients when we can. And so anyway, that's how I got into it. And then I guess when I was a teenager, it developed even more. And you'll learn that if you're a guy that likes to go out on dates or have a nice female friend over in college, you do learn pretty fast that if you are a good cook, that they will come around a little more than usual. So that's another tip.
Guys who know how to cook at that age are few and far between.
Yep.
So I remember talking to you and your brother both about different books that got you into cooking when you started kind of teaching yourself. And I remember us talking about The Joy of Cooking as being one of those books that maybe influenced you guys. Did you guys have any favorite cookbooks that you cooked out of when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, The Joy of Cooking is like a cooking Bible. It really is. And
it even has how to cook squirrel in there.
Yeah.
I have never done that, but
neither have I.
Maybe that should be our next challenge.
Or cook some of these raccoons that are after your chickens all the time.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll take care of them.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, a few different cookbooks, like The Bread Bible is another one. That's a real good one. Savour magazine, actually, and that's a really, really good magazine, and that's another tip if you're really into cooking. Savour kind of takes things to the next level. It's really artsy, a lot of photos. The write-ups are really, really nice and in-depth, and go into ethnic cooking and how that all works. I mean, Food and Wine is great. Bon Appetit's great. There are a lot of good recipes on Pinterest, but I think Savour is probably the best magazine out there. And they have a really huge, like, orangish red cookbook that's very good. It's kind of expensive, but that's another one that I would think about picking up.
Yep, I love Savour. So that's spelled S-A-V-E-U-R. It's a French word.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me your philosophy on cooking, because I know that you have strong opinions about cooking. And grilling and barbecue.
And a lot of stuff. Yeah, the German-Hungarian takes over in the opinions, I think, you know, fortunately and unfortunately. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is to keep things simple. That is the number one thing. And especially if you're starting out, you want to make sure that you keep things simple and you don't get overloaded, and you have some help. And probably want to cook with somebody that knows what they're doing a little bit, just so you can figure out how to cut an onion quickly, how to cut just different vegetables quickly, different cuts of meat. Those are just really basic things, but they will save you a lot of time, especially if you learn how to cut an onion properly, how to cube an onion properly. That will save you a lot of time and a lot of tears. Your eyes will like you. Yes,
actually your brother taught me that. He saw me cutting an onion one day and he was horrified, and I was made to stop. And I've always used his method since then. So yeah, it's huge. Like, knowing those simple things can make your meal prep less intimidating, more quick. It helps you save money.
It does. And you know, another key there is to have some good sharp knives. You don't need to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on knives. There are some good, like, Cuisinart, KitchenAid type knives out there. Victorinox makes a really high-rated knife. I think it's around $35.
Yep.
Fargo Kitchen Store, that's going to be Creative Kitchen. There are other people that carry it too, but Victorinox really has some nice knives for the money.
So that Victorinox knife, it's the 8-inch chef's knife.
Yes.
And it's the one that is recommended by America's Test Kitchen.
Exactly.
And we've actually given
Chris
that
Kimball.
to people as gifts because we go over to a friend's house and all they have are like these dull, crappy knives and you can't do anything.
You
and
can't.
It's dangerous.
They're actually more dangerous than using a sharp knife. You know, they slip, they're cumbersome, you can cut yourself, really injure yourself, and so you want to invest in some decent knives. Like I said, you don't need to spend, you know, $200 on a knife, $150. There's really nice stuff out there for $30-$40.
But tell us about your favorite knife, because you have invested in some good knives. When you cook all the time, you cook for big groups of people, it's a worthy investment, I think.
Yeah, and I think for most guys, we like knives. I know some gals do too. So you know, having a big collection of knives is kind of fun, but you don't need them. I use a lot of Japanese knives these days because they stay real sharp. You have to watch it because they chip easy because the angle is so sharp. German knives are super durable. You want to buy the drop forged German stuff. You don't want to buy the stamp stuff. So you want to kind of look up what you're doing there. I mean, Wusthoff's always a good brand. Wusthof Classic, Icon, those are two real nice ones that'll last you years. I've had a set of Wusthoffs that have lasted 22 years now. Yep.
We have two. Well, 20 years, 17 years, I guess. We got a set when we got married, basically off of your recommendation. And I can't say enough about them. They have just lasted the test of time for sure.
They do, and that brings up another thing too. You know, you don't need the most expensive pans in the world either. They are nice. The All-Clad, the Maviel, the Le Creuset, Staub, those brands are real good. I mean, you get kind of intimidated because you go to the kitchen store or see stuff on Amazon and it's really expensive, and then Food Network has all this stuff. But you don't need all the really fancy stuff. You can find some really nice stuff online, or just cast iron in general is pretty nice. Lodge, there's other cast iron kind of more French style pans that you can use. Those are real nice. A lot of times they come with a wax coating, so you got to kind of deal with that, and there's seasoning involved with those too. But you can buy a nice Lodge cast iron skillet for like, you know, $35. So but you need to, don't buy real thin pans. I try to avoid anything that's non-stick coated just for the health factor. You also can't put them in the oven, which is not great for like pork tenderloin, or if you're searing chicken thighs or whatever, steaks, that sort of thicker steaks, that sort of, you want to be able to put things in the oven, and a lot of those non-sticks have like plastic handles and stuff like that. So you know, if you can, try to drop some money on some really nice stuff, but the point is you don't really need to.
I think one absolutely essential item to have is a good Dutch oven. So we have a Le Creuset that we've had for 17 years. We use it literally almost every day. We've used it for something, one thing or another. And I know you have several that you use a lot as well. I just think it's a really versatile item. Yeah,
and there's two kinds, you know, ceramic coated, which Le Creuset is a nice brand. It's ceramic coated on the inside, so you can see that nice fond developing, that nice brown fond that's building your flavors, like if you're roasting, braising, that sort of thing.
So you actually want to see that?
I like to see it. Other people use the Staub stuff. You know, Lodge also makes some nice stuff, and they're way less expensive than the German or the French stuff, but I like to see the fond developing, so I kind of know what I'm after. And you know, if you do use the enamel coated inside, you need to use like wood utensils or silicone or something like that. You don't want to be scraping it, and don't be scraping the inside with like abrasives and stuff like that. There's a level of like maintenance to some of this stuff, but it all helps you build like a real cooking habit. It makes you want to be able to cook. It kind of gets you excited when you can start doing these things. I'm not going to say properly, because rules are kind of made to be broken, but you need to learn the rules in cooking. It's just like with music or a lot of art, stuff like that. You just need to try to learn all the rules, and then you can kind of start breaking them a little bit and getting that creativity in there.
Yeah, so you have to learn some of the basics of how cooking works, but then once you know some of those basics, that's when you can start to cook from the gut and cook instinctually. Yeah. And for me, like, I started with baking and then learned cooking. So for me, I just bake. Like, people get mad at me all the time when I don't use recipes, but I know how the dough is supposed to look, or the batter is supposed to look and taste and feel, and I don't need to use the recipes anymore. But when you're starting, that can really be helpful, so you know what is normal.
Yeah, and for baking, you want to buy a scale. A lot of people, cups, teaspoon, yada yada. That's okay, but there's hydration factors that go into baking bread and other things, and it's just good to have a scale so you know exactly what's going on. The higher end cookbooks, instruction books, the stuff at the Culinary Institute, that's all going to be in grams, so you kind of want to invest in a scale.
Plus, any European cookbooks or recipes are going to be in weight.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good bread baking and pastry making books that are European. So yeah.
Okay, so we've got knives, we've got good pans, we've got a good Dutch oven. Is there anything else that you think is absolutely crucial to have when you're really just getting your kitchen together for the first time?
Yeah, and like I said, you don't need to buy a ton of stuff. You don't need to spend a ton of money, but like a fine mesh strainer is a big thing. I mean, if you're cooking for yourself and you like pasta even, if you just want to make pasta for yourself, fine mesh strainer is nice because it's smaller. You don't need to take out the huge strainer, that sort of thing. I think some large metal mixing spoons, heavy duty mixing spoons, the plastic ones will break, especially if you're mixing some heavy duty stuff, and those are available at a kitchen store, and they're, you know, 10, 15 bucks. They're not like, you know, $40, $50 like you'd spend at a kitchen store, but those do look nice, the stainless steel stuff.
Yeah.
So
I have some of those now too, and I appreciate them greatly.
Yeah.
What about a mixer? I love my KitchenAid mixer.
KitchenAid makes a nice mixer. They have a bunch of attachments. You know, you want to buy one because there's a regular one, but you want to buy one like an artisan or there's a professional that you can use those attachments. They make everything from a pasta maker to a ice cream machine. I've used all of them. Most of them are real good. The grinder's real good. Viking made a nice one a few years ago, but they've kind of started, they've kind of gotten out of the residential sort of, it's just mainly commercial. So KitchenAid mixer is a big thing, yes.
So, to me, that's another standard thing.
And you want a dough hook, you want a paddle, you want a whisk, you want all of that stuff.
You can even get a sausage making attachment on those, which our family has used, but then we realized when you want to do like massive amounts of sausage, it's not going to be sufficient. Yeah. But if you're just going to do a small amount, then it's more than okay.
Yep. I have all that stuff too, and it works great. But if you're going to be doing stuff commercially, you got to go to Fleet Farm or Shields or whatever and get that sort of stuff.
Yep. So. Okay, so that's pretty good coverage of gadgets. Let's talk about some basic ingredients that you like to have in your pantry or on hand at all times, so that you can just throw something together. And by the way, I would say that one of Rick's strengths as a cook, besides being an amazing griller, is that he is really great at taking whatever he has and making it into something amazing. In fact, my husband still says the best meal he's ever had in his life was a random soup that Rick put together from weird stuff from the fridge when they all lived together in this house. And it's true, he does it at our house too all the time. So what are some things that you, like when you come here, you bring with you just in case we don't have, or that you know you have to have on hand in your kitchen?
Yeah, and that soup, there's probably a lot of wine involved. So, I mean, and a lot of it was for the chef, so that it does make a difference.
It definitely does.
But, you know, you want to buy a lot of spices, and again, just keep what you're cooking at first simple. Just don't get overrun with all these ideas on food tech TV and all this other stuff. Just stick to something real basic, and then you can kind of develop from there. But for like ethnic food, Indian food, Thai food, Vietnamese, those sorts of things require a lot of spices, a lot of whole spices that you You have to toast and grind. You want to replenish those spices every 6 months to a year, depending on what they are, just so they hold their flavor. Erin carries a lot of spices on hand. I don't have to worry a lot about it, but I do bring some extra stuff out. I do like really good olive oil. You know, you can buy unfiltered stuff that's really good for salads. You can buy filtered stuff that's good for cooking. You don't have to use light olive oil for cooking. I think a lot of Italian chefs like Mario Batali and stuff can tell you that. I mean, if you get into super high heat, then you probably want a lighter olive oil, or to mix your olive oil with a little bit of butter, clarified butter, that sort of thing. But really good olive oil. I usually have a lot of butter on hand. I don't use a ton of it, but I do like it as finishing for pastas and sauces and a lot of other things. But the spices are a big deal. I'm a big fan of Hungarian paprika.
It's an actual specific kind of paprika, by the way. Like, I thought all paprika was created equal, and he has converted me over to this particular Hungarian. Do you know what the brand of that is?
Bende.
Bende?
Bende. It's, I don't know. I buy it by the canister. I'm not much of a fan, I guess. But Spanish paprika is also good. Smoked Spanish paprika is very good. I do like dried thyme a lot. I use a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, I have a bay leaves. I use a lot of bay leaves.
What about things like, do you like to have bone broths on hand, like stocks and things that you buy pre-made, or do you like to make your own?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I mean, if I got to make a quick soup or add some stock here or there, whatever, I do buy like organic or the Kitchen Basics stock in the box. The canned stuff, I don't know, anything canned, I'm not really a big fan of, because it just can't, especially tomatoes. People love canned tomatoes making pizzas and sauces. I am not a fan of canned tomatoes at all. I think they picks up the tin taste or whatever the metal is. And I use fresh tomatoes in pretty much everything. And if I got to make a tomato sauce, I warm them up in the food processor and cook them for a while, because I really do not like canned tomatoes. Even the really good San Marzanos, I just don't really like it.
Okay, well, he's also part Italian, so I'm going to listen to what you say about that. Okay, so let's talk about some of your favorite recipes. And I'll bring up one, and you can think about if there's anything else that you want to share that you just like to make on a regular basis. But the very first thing that Rick and I cooked together was this extremely lavish Thai food meal. It took us like 2 days to make everything. And we made peanut sauce from scratch, all with fresh spices that we toasted and ground.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. So tell us kind of the basic process of that.
Yeah, I think we even ground the peanuts
we did.
For that, which you don't need to do. But one thing you do need to look at buying is a larger food processor. The smaller ones just don't get the job done, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I like anything over an 11 cup. I have a 14 cup stainless Cuisinart, and that thing is awesome. Real heavy duty. So that's something you want to invest into. And a nice blender. The Vitamixes are nice. They're expensive. You don't need to spend $500 on a blender, though. Others can get the job done. But it's just kind of, you want to do more stuff or more in bulk, you need that size. So, but back to the peanut sauce. Yeah, there was red curry paste in it. We made that all from scratch. That takes a long time, especially when you buy the lemongrass. That seems like the real sticky wicket in the whole mix. And then all those little red peppers, you have to toast them for a little bit, take the end off, dump the seeds out. It takes a while, toast and grind the spices, put it all together, and then cook it a little bit, add it with the peanut butter and coconut milk, cilantro, lime juice, that sort of thing.
We had a lot of fresh garlic in there too.
Yeah, a lot of garlic in Thai food, a lot of garlic. And it's really good if you dip fried plantains in it. I will tell you that. That is really good, plantain chips and peanut sauce. Okay,
so that recipe might be intimidating to somebody who's just getting into cooking. So, like, what's an example of something that you like to make on the regular that is very achievable for somebody starting out?
Yeah, I really like a basic kind of kale smoked sausage and potato soup. And instead of potatoes recently, I've been putting sweet potatoes in there. It's a little more healthy, but it's kind of a Portuguese sort of thing. And it's just chicken stock, kale, potatoes, smoked sausage. A lot of people would use linguiça. I actually like to use like a smoked hunter sausage or something. You can't find linguiça in North Dakota too often unless you go to Worst Beer Hall, I guess.
Okay.
In Fargo, but I got to give a plug to my buddies Bert and Klaus, the owners. They're great guys. But yeah, that's a really, really simple soup. And then at the end, you just kind of hit it with some really, really good olive oil for richness and that kind of European flavor. And that's a real good, simple recipe.
Tell us about basmati rice and the mistakes people make with it.
Yeah, if you really like yellow rice, like rice pilau or that sort of thing, or just stuff on the Indian buffet, that's real good. You got to buy some high quality stuff, real nice long grain stuff that comes out. You have to wash it until the water's clear, soak it for about an hour. You can't liquefy. I don't know. Don't put too.
Over soak it.
Yeah.
You don't want to over soak it, is what you mean.
The ratio is like after all of the hydration process is like 1 to 1.5, and most.
Okay.
Normal rice is like
1 to 2 or more.
1 to 2, yeah, that sort of thing. So you're looking at like 1 to 1.5 there. I do like to use a lot of butter in it, so I fry some onions in some butter first, and then put some spices in, and bay leaves and cumin seeds and that sort of thing, cinnamon sticks, and then put it in there. It takes about 8 minutes for it to cook, so that's another thing. Like, just don't let it cook that long. You don't want it getting super mushy.
Okay, so you rinse it.
Yeah. And
then you toast it. Do you do that in a pan on the stovetop, or do you do it in the oven?
No, I do it in a like a saucepan, like a 3.5 quart. If I want to do 2 cups of uncooked rice, that 3.5 quart saucepan I think is like all-clad saucepan. It's like the best thing ever for rice on the stove, frankly.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. And tell us something about grilling that we should know besides don't use lighter fluid.
Yeah, grilling is a lot of fun. It really kind of gets you into something that's special, I think, with especially if you're a carnivore and that sort of thing. But vegetables can be real good on the grill too.
Totally. So can fruit.
Fruit's very good. Yeah, peaches with some ricotta, that sort of thing. Yep. Yeah. So I really like charcoal. I mean, gas is great if you need something quick. Vegetables are real good on a gas grill too. You can pick what you want. If you have a family, the convenience is there. You don't have to smell up the house, that sort of thing. So gas is definitely convenient. That's a positive there. I really like charcoal. I try to use lump charcoal if I can, like natural lump charcoal, cowboy charcoal, or big green egg charcoal is real good stuff. Charcoal grilling just gives things a lot more flavor. It's really finicky though. You have to watch, and you get into kind of. Weber has some really good cookbooks, a lot of really good cookbooks that talk about like zone cooking with charcoal and indirect, direct, that sort of thing. And there's other things too. It's not as complicated as you think. You just kind of have to experiment with it. And if you're into experimentation, have some people that want to eat your food. It's going to taste good no matter what, unless you really light it on fire or something.
Unless you crucify it.
Yeah. So you really kind of got to watch things with the charcoal, but like, again, you don't need to spend a lot of money on a charcoal grill. You can buy a Weber charcoal grill, I think one touch for $130 or something like that. A lot of times you can find like older ones at garage sales for 10 or 20 bucks. Totally worth it. If you don't think you're gonna, if it's not a long-term thing, you just want to try it, buy one for 10 bucks and see what happens. But I would say don't buy the Matchlight charcoal. That stuff doesn't last that long. You want to buy like natural charcoal if you can. I use Kingsford a lot too. I know some people would scoff at that, but it gets the job done.
Well, so, right here, that's all we could get.
Exactly.
Not everybody has access to the other kind. I don't know where you get the other kinds.
Yeah, Shields.
Oh.
Or Ace Hardware.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, we had an interesting conversation about cooking fish the other night and cultural problems here with cooking fish.
Yeah, it's just a big problem all around. When you overcook a fish like salmon or cod or lake fish, walleye, sunfish, I mean, people just want to put it in the oven, they think, for a half an hour, and it just comes out like fish jerky and tastes like cat food, to be frank. And so that's not the way you want to cook fish. I mean, it doesn't take that long to cook fish, even on a wood plank, if you're doing stuff with charcoal, something like that.
Yeah.
Just do not overcook fish. And, a lot of salmon these days, people want medium. I think it's good cooked through too. It's just, you can't overcook it. You got to really watch what you're doing.
So how do you determine when fish is done? Is it a texture and color thing, or do you actually take a temperature on it?
No, it's a texture and color thing. You
Okay.
want it to flake a little bit. Yep, and that's pretty much with any fish out there.
As soon as it starts to flake, then it's getting close to done.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, and take a taste. If it seems done, it needs to be light, little juicy. If it's overcooked, you'll tell right away.
Awesome, Rick. This is like amazing content. I wish I would have known a lot of this stuff. Even when I was in high school and learning to cook, I wish I would have known some of these things, because some of the things that we learn culturally are definitely ways to ruin food.
Yes, yeah. I think in the Midwest the culture is changing, which is really good.
Yes.
We're getting in these new ingredients, and seafood's accessible, and good seafood too. But yeah, I mean, there was a culture to overcook everything way back in the day. Although we even produced a lot of the beef and pork, it just was overcooked, and it just doesn't taste good.
And vegetables too. I mean, a tendency to overdo everything in terms of cooking.
Yeah, and health-wise, you just don't want to char everything, unless you're making like some Mexican dish and you want to char some things, and that's okay. But like, those are all about learning the rules and kind of breaking things too. Yeah. So
last question then.
Sure.
Is there any unexplored frontiers in cooking for you? Is there anything that you haven't learned to cook yet that you're really curious to learn?
Cooking is like music. You kind of get into it and get into it and get into it, and there's so much out there, so there's always room for improvement. I can't really tell you exactly what. Well, I guess Middle Eastern food I've gotten into in the recent years. There's a restaurant in downtown Fargo called Burn Bombs that's quite good, and she's into kind of
really awesome
Israeli, Lebanese, that sort of thing.
She also has gluten-free desserts, which is like a major win for me.
Yeah, her desserts are incredible. But you buy cookbooks by Otto Lengi. There's another one called Zahav that's really good. It was interesting. Anthony Bourdain visited a lot of those restaurants and made those things popular amongst kind of the food crowd, and he's not with us anymore, unfortunately. And I think he was a big part of me learning how to cook and a lot of these ethnic dishes. He was just a real powerful guy, and I know a lot of my friends really looked up to him. But there's a lot of stuff that he did that you can look up and learn from. So
totally. His show is always just brain explosions for me.
Yeah.
He'd go into talking about a certain kind of cooking that I thought I knew something about, and then it became obvious I knew nothing about it.
Yeah, and a big part of that is the historical factor, and I think in the Midwest we kind of thrive on that too, looking back on family history and the church cookbooks and the family cookbooks, and those are all good things because you learn about the culture that way.
Yep.
And learning about the culture is just good for the community.
Yeah.
So, Anthony Bourdain, great guy, big influence on me. There are a lot of others. But, yeah, I mean, it's just getting into some research, kind of what food do you like, and kind of researching where you want to go and not getting too intimidated with things, because I think that's the biggest problem is, I don't want to learn how to cook. It's too hard. I don't want to burn anything. Well, everything's kind of taking a risk, and if you want to learn something, you're going to make some mistakes. That's just how it is, and that's kind of the fun part of it. Yeah. Sometimes you make a mistake and it tastes real good, and then your friends can eat it. So
yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for spending the time with us.
You're welcome. It was fun.
Yeah, sharing. He knows way more than this, but this is just a little bit to learn about Rick. A lot of people know Rick from the political world. Not as many people know him as the amazing cook and chef he could potentially be if he wanted to.
Too many long hours.
So no kidding.
It's
Not that politics is, easy that way either.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you taking the time, and I hope that you all have learned something today. If you did, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. And please, of course, like, comment, subscribe, save, hit that notification bell. Of course, as always, if you are on your podcast app, please Give me a 5-star review. It helps me so much to get the word out there about helping you to live a more holistic lifestyle with ease. And we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.